Imagine a massive tug of war happening constantly in the marketplace. On one side, you have the buyers, creating demand. On the other, you have the sellers, creating supply. These two forces are the foundation of how our economy works. They are always pulling against each other, and in doing so, they determine the price you pay for your favorite video game, the cost of a haircut, or even the rent on an apartment. Understanding this tug of war is key to understanding economics. When economists talk about demand, it's more than just wanting something. You might desperately want a brand new sports car, but if you don't have the money to buy it, your desire doesn't count as demand. Demand is defined by two things. You must have the willingness to buy the product and the ability, the money, to pay for it. The demand side represents the interests and purchasing decisions of all consumers, people like you and me. The law of demand is incredibly logical. Think about your favorite snack food. If the store suddenly doubles the price, you're probably going to buy less of it, or maybe switch to a cheaper brand. But if they cut the price in half, you might buy 2 bags. The law states that as the price of anything goes up, the quantity consumers are willing and able to buy automatically goes down. The opposite is also true. Lower prices lead to higher quantity demanded. We use a demand curve to clearly show this relationship. If you plot price on the vertical axis and the quantity demanded on the horizontal axis, the line always slopes downward. That downward slope visually represents the law of demand. It shows that at a high price, the quantity is low, and as the price slides down the curve, the quantity you demand goes up, up, up. Now let's switch to the other side of the market, supply. Supply is all about the producers and sellers. Supply is the amount of a product or service that a business is willing to offer to customers. Think of the local bakery. They might be willing to bake 100 loaves of bread a day. Their decision is driven by their costs, the flour, the labor, the rent, and their desire to make a profit. The law of supply is driven by the producer's desire for profit. Imagine you own a lemonade stand. If lemonade starts selling for $5 a cup, you'll think, wow, I'm making a fortune. And you'll want to supply more lemonade, maybe even adding an extra stand. But if the price drops to 50 cents, you might decide it's not worth your time and stop supplying altogether. The law states that as the price goes up, the quantity supplied goes up. Like demand, we plot supply on a graph called the supply curve. Since producers want to supply more when the price is high, the supply curve always slopes upward from left to right. This upward slope shows the motivation of the producer. The higher the price you are willing to pay, the more they are incentivized to produce and bring to the market. When we put the demand curve and the supply curve on the same graph, they eventually cross. That magical crossing point is the market equilibrium. This point is where the desires of the buyers and the desires of the sellers perfectly match. The price at this intersection is the market clearing price, meaning every product produced at that price will be bought. The market naturally pushes towards this balance point. What happens if the price is set too high, maybe by a producer making a mistake? We get a surplus. A surplus means the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded. The producer has a bunch of extra inventory, say 20 extra bicycles, sitting in the warehouse because nobody wants to pay the high price. To fix this, the producer is forced to lower the price, moving the market back toward equilibrium. On the flip side, what if the price is set too low? We get a shortage. A shortage happens when the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied. Imagine a concert ticket is priced way too low. Instantly, hundreds of people want to buy it, but there are only 50 tickets. Because so many people are competing for the few tickets, the price will naturally be driven up. until only the people willing to pay the high price are left. The curves we've looked at can actually move or shift entirely. A demand curve shifts when something other than the price of the good itself changes consumer behavior. For instance, if a celebrity endorses a product, suddenly people want it regardless of the price. That's a shift due to taste. Other factors include changes in consumer income, like getting a raise, or the number of people in the market. Let's use the example of a fad, like a new type of sneaker. When that sneaker becomes the hottest thing, demand for it shifts dramatically to the right. This means that at the original price, people now want to buy a lot more of it. If the fad ends or a new trend takes over, demand for the old sneakers will shift to the left, meaning people want less of them at every price. The producer has to quickly respond to these shifts. Supply curves also shift when something changes the producer's ability or willingness to make the product. One major factor is input costs, the price of the raw materials or labor. If the price of sugar doubles, the cost to make a candy bar goes up, and the supplier will make less. Another huge factor is technology. A new, faster machine can dramatically increase supply because it makes production cheaper and more efficient. Imagine a farmer using old, slow tools. Then they buy a huge, modern harvester. That technological upgrade dramatically increases the supply of grain they can produce at the same cost. The supply curve shifts to the right, increasing the overall quantity available. Conversely, if the government levies a new expensive tax on the product, the cost of production goes up, the profit shrinks, and the supply curve shifts to the left. Now we can predict what happens when the market changes. If the demand for a product suddenly increases, say everyone wants sunscreen in the summer, the demand curve shifts to the right. This creates a temporary shortage at the old price. The pressure of the shortage forces the price to rise, and the amount of sunscreen sold also increases. The new equilibrium is always at a higher price and a higher quantity. Let's look at a supply shock. Suppose a severe frost wipes out half of the orange crop, causing supply to decrease, shift left. This instantly creates a huge shortage of oranges. The price of the remaining oranges will skyrocket, and the quantity available to buy will be much lower. The new equilibrium is set at a much higher price, but a much lower quantity, which is tough on the consumer. Price elasticity measures how sensitive consumer demand is to a change in price. If you sell something elastic, like a specific brand of cereal, and you raise the price, people will easily switch brands. Demand changes a lot. If you sell something inelastic, like gasoline or essential medicine, and you raise the price, people still have to buy it, so demand barely changes. Sometimes, governments try to control prices, usually with unintended results. A price ceiling is a legal maximum price set to help consumers afford necessities. For example, rent control. If the ceiling is set below the equilibrium price, it creates a permanent chronic shortage. Producers don't want to sell at the low price, and everyone wants to buy, so there's not enough to go around. The opposite is a price floor, which is a legal minimum price set to help producers earn enough. The most famous example is the minimum wage, which is a price floor for labor. If the floor is set above the equilibrium price, it creates a permanent surplus. In the labor market, this surplus is called unemployment, as the quantity of labor supplied is greater than the quantity of labor demanded. Ultimately, the price system is a brilliant, flexible tool for communicating economic information. When the price of something is high, it sends a clear signal to consumers to conserve it, and to producers to make more of it. When the price is low, it signals the opposite. Prices are a quick, impartial, and flexible way to ensure that scarce resources are distributed efficiently and that the economy is constantly adapting to change.